Welcome to Traveling with Glenn, a series of bicycle touring adventures designed to educate, to entertain, and to inspire the viewer. I am your host, Glenn Davis. Today's adventure is part one of a four-part series of my solo bicycle tour of Western Europe. Part one includes Luxembourg, France, and the Principality of Monaco. Part 2 will cover Italy, San Marino, and Switzerland. Part 3 includes Slovenia, Austria, and Liechtenstein. Part 4 covers West Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium. You are about to view the first segment of Part 1. The entire bike tour on my 21-speed Cannondale road touring bicycle loaded with camping gear took 195 days, during which I rode 5,845 miles. I began this adventure by flying from Bradley International Airport to JFK Airport, then to Keflavik, Iceland, and Luxembourg City, Luxembourg. Luxembourg, officially called the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, is a landlocked country bordered by Belgium to the north and west, Germany to the east, and France to the south. Its 998 square miles make it about the size of Rhode Island. The population is approximately 576,000. Luxembourg's government is a representative democracy with a constitutional monarch, headed by a Grand Duke, and is the world's only remaining Grand Duchy. Luxembourg is a charming old-world city set on hills overlooking the Alzette and Petrus rivers. Its 115,000 residents comprise roughly 20% of the nation's population. A citadel is defined as a little city because it is a smaller part of the city, of which it is the defensive core. The citadel was part of the city's fortifications, which included several watchtowers. Its larger purpose was to control the left bank of the Rhine River, the Low Countries, and the border between France and Germany. The citadel was gradually built over 9 centuries, from soon after the city's founding in the 10th century until 1867, when most of it was torn down. One of the watchtowers is Vauban Tower. The Alzette River winds its way through the city's center. It is linked to the Petrus River Valley, which is spanned by Passerelle Bridge, a massive stone structure 952 feet long with 24 arches. The Old Bridge, as it is also known, was built from 1859 to 1861 and stands 148 feet above the valley floor. This tower, built in 1050, was a part of Luxembourg City's early fortifications. A walk around the city center reveals a sentry guarding the ducal palace, the official residence and office of the Grand Duke. Place Guillaume II is named for Grand Duke William II, who is shown in the statue. Luxembourgers take great pride in keeping their city clean. The square, ringed by many beautiful buildings, is also a good place to take a break and dine at a sidewalk cafe. The musicians in this fountain seem to have a problem with leaky instruments. The Chamber of Deputies seats 60 members who are elected to 5-year terms. Fort Thungen was part of the city's defenses. Another watchtower, also spanning Petrus Valley, is Adolphe Bridge, built from 1900 to 1903. It is 503 feet long and is nicknamed New Bridge. This massive stonework guarded a portion of the lower city along the Alzette River. A view of the Alzette River reveals homes along it and part of the city atop the citadel. After 2 days in Luxembourg City, I bicycled into pretty countryside and charming villages. An attractive church in the village of Mertert. The Schur River flows for 107 miles in Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. In the town of Wasserbillig, we see St. Martin's Church. I bicycled 248 miles in Luxembourg, a land of rolling hills, of forests and farms. The pretty town of Echternach is situated on the west side of Schur River, which separates Luxembourg and Germany in this region. Seen here is the bell tower of Saints Peter and Paul Church. Also in Echternach is Orangerie Castle. An orangerie is a room or building on the grounds of a fashionable residence where oranges and other fruit trees were protected from the winter, similar to a greenhouse or conservatory. A garden grows beside a buttressed wall and watchtower of the town's old fortifications. Dairying is important to Luxembourg's economy. The oldest section of the castle in Beaufort dates to the 11th century. Some of the castle is in ruins, and some has been restored. I photographed Chateau Verton in the town of Diekirch. Farms and small villages dot the countryside. This castle in Vianden was one of the largest fortified castles west of the Rhine River. It was built in the Romanesque style between the 11th and 14th centuries. I had this stunning view of Vianden from an overlook. More of the pretty countryside of Luxembourg. I enjoyed the splendid view of Clairvaux from an overlook. The castle in Clairvaux was built in the 12th century. It was fully restored after its destruction in the World War II Battle of the Bulge. The Church of Saints Cosmas and Damian was built from 1910 to 1912 in Clairvaux. We conclude our tour of Luxembourg with this peaceful, pastoral scene. France is located in Western Europe from 41 to 51 degrees north latitude, 6 degrees west longitude to 10 degrees east longitude, about 620 miles from west to east, and roughly the same distance from north to south. France is slightly smaller than Texas. Its population is about 67 million. The government of France is a unitary, semi-presidential republic. You can have Paris. You're about to see the France that I prefer. It is a country of quaint homes and attractive rural scenes. Of course, France wouldn't be France without its grand chateau. In the town of Saverne, we see Rohan Chateau, originally built in the 16th century. It is a neoclassical reconstruction of the 18th to 19th century. The chateau is sometimes referred to as the Alsatian Versailles. Saverne is a town with charming homes of Alsatian architecture. Henry Katz built the ornate Maison Katz as a tavern in 1605. Of all the towns and cities I've visited in France, none comes close to the Alsatian city of Strasbourg for sheer beauty. It might be the most picturesque city in France. A series of canals from the Rhine River and its tributaries run through and around Strasbourg. This and the next 3 pictures show a charming old world section of Strasbourg called La Petite France. Alsatian architecture, canals and window boxes luxuriant with flowering plants characterize La Petite France. Many of the streets are cobblestoned. Notice how clean the streets are. The people take great pride in the cleanliness of their town. More attractive homes in Strasbourg. Quaint homes and shops. The Kammerzell house on the right, built in the 15th century, is one of the most famous houses of Strasbourg, with its carved wooden facade and high pointed gable, characteristic of an Alsatian building. It's always fun to ride a carousel. Called simply La Cathédrale, this masterpiece of late Gothic and Roman architecture was built of local pink sandstone between 1015 and 1439. The cathedral features a facade of 3 richly sculptured doorways and a superb rose window. Its 466-foot-high spire made it the tallest building in the world from 1647 to 1874. This is a view of the city from the 466-foot-high spire. The large building in the foreground is Rohan Palace. Rohan Palace, built from 1728 to 1741, for the Prince Bishops of Strasbourg, today is the home of the cardinals and several museums. Orangerie Park is a great place to take a relaxing boat ride in Strasbourg. The park was created in the 17th century. This pretty Alsatian home, situated along a canal, has window boxes filled with flowers. St. Paul's Cathedral, built from 1892 to 1897 in the Gothic Revival style, has spires which rise 249 feet high. Another pretty home in Strasbourg. Broly Square is surrounded by stately buildings from the 18th century. Strasbourg is the official seat of the European Parliament. Pretty homes along a canal. I saw this decorative building with an ornate clock in Molsheim, a town in the heart of the Alsatian wine district, one of France's most important grape-growing regions. Molsheim is also home to the Bugatti automotive industry, producers of the Veyron, a sporty little car which will cost you a mere $2 million. The small Alsatian village of Rossheim is a winemaking town on the tourist road of the wines of Alsace and the Romanesque route of Alsace. The stone tower to the left of center is the Church of Saints Peter and Paul, built in the 12th century. The tower dates from the 14th century. While waiting out a thunderstorm under an eave in the town of Bernardsville, the woman in this picture invited me in for coffee. I bounded up the stairs and entered the small but tasteful combination dining and living room. As we introduced ourselves, I'm sure that Dominique was shocked to learn that she had an American cyclist in her home. I took a seat at the table on which sat a fragrant bouquet of lilacs and a basket of fruit. Dominique brought over 3 large bowls, sugar cubes, and milk. The bowls are similar to our soup bowls, and coffee is drunk from them. Dominique prepared 2 fried eggs and toast for me. Her husband, Georges, who had been busy downstairs, was introduced to me. He is a nurse in Strasbourg and commutes by train. Georges and Dominique have 3 daughters. The eldest, about 9, danced as an opera played on the radio. Dominique loves classical music. As we ate, I told the Giroux about my bicycling and of my perceptions of France, such as they were after 5 days in their country. My hostess served cheese with local wine, then yogurt with strawberries. Dominique also served cookies and pretzel sticks. Everything was delicious, but the company was the best. I gave the Giroux my address and invited them to come to America, but with 3 little ones that is unlikely unless Georges wins the national lotto. During my 90-minute visit, I saw little of their home, but it's typical Alsatian, about 200 years old and likely a bit small for 5 people. I'm glad that we shared a little of our lives with each other. That's what it's all about. As I left, Dominique gave me some biscuits, apples, and chocolate to take with me. I took this picture of the Giroux, got on my bike, and we bade each other au revoir. This is the cobblestoned town center of Obernai, whose bell tower dominates the skyline. This region was the property of the Dukes of Alsace as far back as the 7th century. A close view of the bell tower. Today, Obernai is known for its beer and wine production. The stately cathedral in Obernai. Stained glass in the cathedral. This water tower is in the town of Sélestat, as is this clock tower and mural of the crucifixion. Sélestat, founded in the 8th century, has prospered as a center of wine production, religious and cultural life. Homes, shops, and a fountain in the village of Kinsheim. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the entire population of Berkheim was wiped out by 2 wars and the plague. Thousands of immigrants were brought in to restock the town. Shown here is the clock tower and a town gate. Also in Berkheim is a portion of the old city wall and a watchtower. The next 3 scenes were taken in the village of Ribeauville. A lookout tower, a combination clock tower and city gate, a fountain. With its old Alsatian homes and cobblestone streets, the town of Rijkeweer looks much as it did in the 16th century. Rijkeweer is widely known for its Riesling and other fine wines. This is its clock tower and gate. Keizersberg, meaning Emperor's Mountain, is one of the finest grape-growing regions in Alsace. The first vines were brought here from Hungary in the 16th century. The ruins of the castle. Keizersberg is noted as the birthplace of Dr. Albert Schweitzer, noted physician, humanitarian, and musician. The village of Saint-Blaise. Because of its canals, Annecy is known as the Venice of the Alps. Stained glass in Saint Maurice's church, the oldest in Annecy. A general view of Annecy and its chateau. Annecy Chateau is a 12th century castle called Island Palace because it is on an island in the Thiou River. The town of Annecy is also nicknamed the Pearl of the French Alps. Annecy Lake, at 9 miles long and up to 2 miles wide, is the 3rd largest lake in France. I took a day ride around Annecy Lake and saw Chateau d'Oin, located on a causeway at the lake's edge. The original castle was built in the 11th century, with additions from the 17th to 19th centuries. Annecy Lake was formed about 18,000 years ago after large alpine glaciers melted. The lake has a maximum depth of 269 feet. Also on my ride around Annecy Lake, I saw this church with the lake and the Alps in the background. In Chambéry is the 15th century chateau of the Duke of Savoy. The Alps provide a majestic backdrop to vineyards and fields in the town of Saint-André. Tucked among the Alps, in the village of Le Touvet, is the impressive Chateau Touvet, built in the 13th century. On the way to Saint-Bernard, I enjoyed the snow-capped Massif de la Chartreuse. Saint-Bernard is dwarfed by the Massif. Lying at the base of three majestic mountain ranges, the Beldon, the Chartreuse, and the Vercors, the city of Grenoble is known as the capital of the French Alps. I rode a Telfer car to the Bastille, where I took this photograph of the city, showing some of the downtown and the 178-mile-long Isère River. At the 1968 Winter Olympic Games in Grenoble, American figure skater Peggy Fleming won the gold medal in ladies singles. This is the former Stendhal Museum and Library. Founded in 1798, it was considered the premier museum of contemporary art in France from 1920 to 1947. The Durance River is 201 miles long, a quaint village nestled at the base of the mountains. Lake Serre-Paulson covers 11 square miles, is up to 300 feet deep, is 12 miles long, and has a maximum width of 2 miles. Col de Saint-Jean is one of many passes which I climbed in the French Alps. This one is 4,382 feet in elevation. I bicycled 1,921 miles in France. My bicycle is a 21-speed Cannondale touring bicycle. The frame is made of aluminum alloy. Up front is a handlebar bag which carries my camera and snacks for munching on during the day. On either side of the front wheel is a rack which supports 2 panniers or saddlebags. The frame also holds 2 water bottles and a tire pump. The rear rack spans the rear wheel and has 2 panniers or saddlebags attached to it. The panniers hold changes of clothing, tools, spare parts. And atop the rack is a tent and sleeping bag. Our Lady of Nazareth is a mid-12th century church in the town of Seine. I had a great time biking through the narrow, steep-sided gorge called the Clou de Barle, carved by the Besse River. Referred to as a balcony road, this hair-raising, twisting lane often disappears from view, cut into the side of sheer cliffs, in some places not wide enough for 2 cars. I wrote in my journal, "The Alps are splendid, but this gorge has surprised and delighted me more." We are in Digne, a town in southeastern France, 90 miles from the Mediterranean Sea. The foundations of the Romanesque Notre Dame de Bourg church were laid in the 9th century. Some of the 11th century parts remain after the renovation of the 12th century. These boys are kicking a soccer ball. Notice how different the homes are from those in Alsace. Saint-Jérôme's Church is a 15th to 16th century Gothic structure with a 19th century facade. Digne is situated in the Haute-Alpes province at an elevation of 1,500 feet. Nestled in a valley which protects it from the wind, its climate is hot and dry. The town of Saint-Julien and Castillon Lake, a man-made lake which is 5 miles long, 1.9 square miles, and has a maximum depth of 330 feet. In the town of Castellane is the 11th century chapel of Saint-Victor. The pentagonal tower was built in 1360. Also in Castellane is the spectacular Notre-Dame de Roc, established in the 12th century. It was rebuilt in 1590, the early 18th century, and again in 1860. And many pretty flowers dot the countryside. The Grand Canyon of the Verdun River is one of the most spectacular natural wonders of France. The limestone gorge is 16 miles long and 700 feet deep. Formed by the damming of the Verdun River, Sainte-Croix Lake is 8.5 square miles and has a maximum depth of 305 feet. I photographed this church with bell tower in the village of Moustier-Sainte-Marie. Chateau Aiguine and the church are located in the village of Aiguine. A view of Aiguine and Sainte-Croix Lake. The next day I continued my ride along the Grand Canyon of the Verdun River. I photographed this church and clock tower in the town of Saint-Vallier de Taille. Another beautiful flower. This bell tower is in Grasse, a town whose famous perfumeries have given it the distinction of being the world's capital of perfume. Thank you for viewing Traveling with Glenn. Be sure to tune in to each and every adventure as we tour this fascinating world. Until then, I wish you bon voyage.